God's against us. Faithfulness is the word.
My religion compels me, and I love it for it, to be against discrimination of any kind in our country.
Our rights come from nature and God, not from government.
All God asks of you is faithfulness, faithfulness, faithfulness.
Fighting for the family, standing for the church, laboring to return to a moral and biblically based culture.
This is the American Family Association at AFA Today.
And we welcome you to the New York studios of AFA Today. Kevin McCullough is my name, and I am happy to have you with us per usual on this extraordinarily cold day in much of the Midwest and the Northeast. Grateful for your time that you take out to spend with us each day. It is really getting to be one of those things each year that I wonder if the media will ever learn its lesson. We get to this day each year. There are more people that turn out for this one event in Washington, D.C., than almost all of the combined events the rest of the year in the nation's capital combined. Maybe the only thing that draws just a wee bit bigger crowd is the annual fireworks that take place on the Mall in Washington, D.C., where you have the patriotic expression of July 4th. But year after year after year, and I want you to help me to understand why this is the case. Year after year, by far, the largest number of people come to Washington, D.C., today braving the cold, braving the brutal winter weather. Dumped dozens of inches of snow all from D.C. all the way up to Boston last night. And yet, most of the media today will ignore the March for Life. Most of the media today, I come to you from the belly of the news beast here in New York City. We are at the corner of Wall Street and Broadway. We are just down the street from most of the major networks. And I will give some kudos to Fox News because periodically throughout the morning today, they have been giving reports from the March for Life. But aside from that one outlet, when you have a couple of 100,000 people show up somewhere, generally, what you have from the networks is they load in their long beds, they take all of their satellite dishes, they fly their helicopters, they beam up the images, they get the live remote feeds ready to go, and at the end of the day, they're doing hits. Every time they have the camera open, they're doing another report from that location. When the two political conventions occur, for instance, you have maybe about 1/10 of the number of people show up to go to any of those political conventions. So when the Democrats have theirs, you may have 25,000 people show up in an arena. And they'll be there for, a couple of days. They'll nominate their candidate, and then they'll go home. When the Republicans do the same thing, then you've got a different scenario. You've got the Republicans coming. Some of them by the dozens, by the hundreds, whatever, but you're still not going to have more than 25,000 people. That's the most that those arenas hold. And when those things go on, you have the news trucks roll up, you have the big dishes, you have the guys, the networks man the live update booth 24 hours a day. They have people standing there in the dead of night at 3 a.m. Just so that they can cut in and say, live from the Republican convention or live from the Democratic convention. But the point is, they are covering it. And you have 1/10 the number of people that you have today. Today, Washington, D.C. is virtually closed down because of the turnout for the March for Life. I'm looking at One News now. There's an article there. Young pro-life generation delivers its message. Opening line of the story, penned by Charlie Butts. Washington, D.C. is virtually closed down today because of the annual March for Life. thousands of young ambassadors for life will be making a major contribution. I would think that the news networks would have a vested interest in trying to report to the nation what it is about this event that causes nearly 200,000 people to show up. I would think from another standpoint that when you consider the reality that the pro-life movement is increasingly becoming a youth-led movement, I would think that there would be some curiosities about whether or not this is important. You know what's important to the networks? And I'd love to have your feedback on this. 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. Kevin McCullough, glad to have you with us. What's important to the networks is that they provide the right amount of cover for their girl Wendy Davis from Texas, who was caught in abject lies about her biography, what she has done, how she has survived life. What's important for the networks is that they write headlines that include words like right-wing witch hunt exposes some inconsistencies in Wendy Davis's history. I will guarantee you that no one from the right wing had anything to do with the story that Wendy Davis was telling about herself. And let's remember what Wendy Davis became famous for in the state of Texas. She became famous for arguing a few things. She argued that late-term abortions, when the child is viable outside the womb, should still be allowed to happen. She argued that women should be forced to go to abortion clinics even if they are operated by butchers who don't have hospital admitting credentials for their medical practice. And she argued that an innocent unborn child is in fact not a child. She more or less abandoned her husband and her children the day the final payment to Harvard Law School was paid by her husband. And since then has tried to position herself as a single mom and as someone that represents the woman of Texas. And by extension, the nation. She wants the nation to believe that she represents what real women are about today. This is my dilemma. This is my struggle. This is the anger inside my heart. My business, the news media industry, will have trucks all outside of Wendy Davis headquarters today, and they'll be ready to run cover for her story. They'll be ready to accept her explanation and to allow it to be propagated without any critical thought or pushback on any of the facts. They won't be a hostile journalism source, which is what the media is supposed to be. The media is supposed to poke holes in people's stories and get to the bottom of what the truth is. But they won't do that. They won't do that to prevent Wendy Davis from rising to the post that they want her to be, which is currently they want her to win the gubernatorial race in the state of Texas. Because they believe if they can take Texas down, then this country will remain in the hands of the left forever. And they might be right. If you flip Texas to become a blue state, America might be done for. I don't know, but it makes sense to me. But they will be diligent to do that. Brian Williams will be diligent to make sure that Wendy Davis's side of the story is always told. But Brian Williams will not have the courage to walk outside his news reporting location in Washington, D.C., and go to the mall and with his own eyes see 200,000, of which at least half of them are young women. Some of them are single moms who had been counseled to have an abortion that decided not to. Some of them will be young girls that are choosing to remain abstinent until they are married so that they can pass on a purity in their marriage to their family and a love for their children that is worthy and whole and not emotionally broken and pieced together. That's not interesting to my industry. The industry I work in, the industry that I am surrounded by here in the belly of New York City. The people here are not interested in hearing the stories of how a woman had an abortion and later came to regret so much those actions that she was literally to the point of suicide until someone came with the love of Jesus to her and then said, let's dedicate your life to finding ways to encourage other women not to do that. They have no intellectual curiosity for these stories, these true stories, these stories that actually matter and actually have a degree of importance because of a life that was saved or changed because of them. No, my industry, the news media industry of North America, will pride itself on how it will look the other way as the children of this nation are sacrificed. When President Obama was talking about going to Syria and using military intervention to do that, he was always talking about the plight of the child, the plight of the Syrian children and the innocent children that we needed to save from the persecution that was going on, because now Al-Qaeda is trying to take over Syria, and Assad is just as bad as Al-Qaeda, but they're both really bad people, and we didn't end up going and getting involved. But his argument was that the children deserve to be rescued. And yet in the last years since 1973, since this date in 1973, 55 million children have not been rescued. In my industry, the news makers and news tellers and news readers and news reporters and news anchors have looked the other way, while politicians have said there's nothing to see there. Friends, I don't know your thoughts about the March for Life. Be glad to hear them, 888-589-8840. But I know one thing. If we allow the politicians and we allow the news media industry to champion the cause of a woman named Wendy Davis, whose most significant thing that I can tell she's contributed to the life of this world is what color her tennis shoes were. If we allow them to tell that story and we don't challenge them when it comes to the issue of what the plight of the unborn child is, then we deserve to lose our nation. If we sit back and watch as they tell the world that, yeah, this fringe people of America, the extremists, you know, the kind that Governor Cuomo was saying, don't even come to New York a couple of days ago. Now he's backpedaling incredibly because he realizes, New York needs tourism. Hey, it's not a good idea to tell people not to come. But if the media could get past their own biases, their own guilt, their own remorse over the moral bankruptcy that they have passed on in their industry called journalism, if the politicians could understand that the blood of 55 million people are on their hands, I think we might be able to begin to have a different outcome in this conversation. But friends, if we don't get involved, they're not going to care. All right, Kevin's been ranting. Take your calls next, 888-589-8840. I'm Kevin McCullough, AFA Today on AFR Talk.